This is Eagle News Canada. I'm Lou Aquino. These are interesting times. For the headlines, North Korea holds mass celebrations for latest missile test. Despite Greek shelter, Yazidis struggle to integrate. Inclusive Hungary playgrounds for disabled kids. Ex-Trump aide Flynn pleads guilty to lying about Russia links. Now for the details. North Korea holds mass celebrations for latest missile test. Justin Kusi with details.
North Korea held mass celebrations for its latest successful long-range missile test, with a propaganda-filled display of fireworks and dancing in public squares. The ruling Workers' Party official daily Rodong Sinmun covered its front page with colorful photographs showing thousands of tightly packed soldiers and people applauding in Pyongyang's Kim Il-sung Square, which was decorated with large portraits of North's late leaders. North Korea successfully tested a new intercontinental ballistic missile, with leader Kim Jong-un declaring his country had now achieved full nuclear statehood. The U.S. in response warned that Kim Jong-un's regime would be utterly destroyed if its pursuit of a long-range nuclear missile arsenal provokes a military clash, and has battled to maintain international solidarity in the face of North Korea's nuclear threat. Kim himself was absent from the celebrations. He usually stays away from such events, but Friday's gathering drew key military, party and the government leaders. Vice Chairman Park Kwang-ho of the party decision-making Central Committee told the crowd that the United States had been jolted at the strengthening of North Korea's nuclear force and could attempt to commit robber-like provocative acts. He repeated Kim's warning that the North would respond with the highest level of hardline countermeasure in history. Kim first made the threat in September in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's UN speech, threatening to destroy the North and mocking him as a little rocket man. The North said that the ICBM Hwasong 15 type weaponry system used in Wednesday's test is an intercontinental ballistic rocket tipped with super-large heavy warhead capable of striking the whole mainland of the U.S. But the analysts remain unconvinced that the North has mastered the technology required to launch and direct a missile and ensure it survives the difficult re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Tensions are expected to rise further in the coming week as South Korea and the United States launch a massive Air Force drill mobilizing some 230 aircraft, including 6 U.S. F-22 Raptor stealth jet fighters. Reporting for Eagle News, I am Justine Kusi. I am 1 with 25.
Thank you, Justine. Despite Greek shelter, Yazidis struggle to integrate. Thomas I. Likeness reports.
Although Abraham Handetta's Yazidi family reached Greece a year ago after fleeing persecution, they still fear the target of violence and are fighting to keep their community together. Having run the gauntlet of invasion, combat, killings, and enslavement by Islamic jihadists in Iraq, the members of this religious minority have found temporary shelter in the largely agricultural region of Saras in northern Greece. The camp they have been allocated to is one of the best in the country. Their prefabricated homes have air conditioning and solar panels to heat the water. The grounds are clean. There's a playground for the children. Many hope to be reunited with other Yazidis stranded in Greece. But with the country struggling to manage more than 50,000 refugees and migrants stranded on its territories, that is not always an option. A Greek official with knowledge of refugee management efforts said, creating a camp just for the Yazidis is neither possible nor viable. The camp can normally accommodate 700 people. At the moment, there are some 350 Yazidis, most of them women and children, waiting for EU-sponsored relocation to other parts of Europe. Greece's policy is to move eligible refugees from overcrowded island camps, where they undergo identity checks upon arrival from Turkey, to the mainland, where more comfortable accommodation is available in better camps, UN-funded flats, and hotels. But the Yazidis, who have already faced an ordeal keeping their dwindling community together thus far, oppose this policy. This is partly due to fear of other communities. They had a scare earlier this year when the Yazidi celebration in Kilkis, another part of northern Greece, descended into violence between Arabs and Kurds. In Athens, a migration ministry source said every effort is being made to facilitate and protect the Yazidis from possible harm. The UN Assistance Mission to Iraq and the UN Rights Office said in an August report around 1,500 have been killed and more than 3,000 are believed to remain in captivity. In areas controlled by the Islamic State, Thousands of women and girls from the Yazidi minority were used as sex slaves and suffered horrible abuse. This included rape, abduction, slavery, and cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. The suffering the Yazidis have endured explains why community elders in Saras have written to the Migration Ministry to officially request that the camp be assigned to Yazidis only. Thomas I. Likeness. Eagle News, I'm one with 25.
Thank you, Thomas. Shrieks of laughter by non-disabled and disabled children having fun together at Hungarian playgrounds are becoming more common, thanks to some determined parents turned innovative designers. Mirel Roman with the details.
Hester Hayashi, 44, is one of the co-founders of Magic Me, a startup designing playground equipment displayed at some 30 playgrounds in Budapest. With 2 extra legs for laying on, and hand grips and wings along the sides to prevent falls, children can climb out of wheelchairs or lay down to enjoy the ride without needing a helper to hold them. Arsani and 4 other parents with disabled children hatched the idea in 2013. After bringing a designer friend on board and setting up a firm in 2014, a key part of the parents' mission was making the equipment cool for able-bodied kids too. Another piece on elevated sandbags called Tune allows children to dig together standing up or laying down. Arsani believed that such inclusive playgrounds can make society more tolerant in the long run. Another parent at the playground, Arpad Khan, said he was surprised and saddened to learn that most playground equipment is effectively off limits to disabled kids who cannot sit unassisted. As well as designing new sensory and tactile equipment, the firm plans to branch out to their neighboring Austria and Slovakia and farther afield. Arsania says lack of playgrounds access for disabled kids is not a Hungarian problem, but a global one. This Sunday is the International Day of Disabled Person, which aims to promote understanding and awareness of disability issues. Reporting for Eagle News, I am Mirel Roman, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Mirel. Donald Trump's former top advisor Michael Flynn pleaded guilty Friday to lying to the FBI over his contacts with Russia. Isabel Fernandez with the details.
The retired 3-star Army General Michael Flynn is the most senior figure indicted in Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller's sprawling investigation into Russian interference in last year's election. Flynn's admission that he had secret discussions in December 2016 with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, with direction from top Trump officials, set Washington abuzz with speculation over who in the Republican leader's inner circle might next be in Mueller's sights. Citing unnamed sources, the Washington Post reported that one of the very senior presidential transition team officials advising Flynn to contact the Russian envoy was Trump's son-in-law and senior aide, Jared Kushner. Flynn's guilty plea on a federal charge of making false statements to investigators came with a pledge to cooperate with Mueller, whose focus goes beyond possible collusion with Russia to shady business dealings and whether Trump himself tried to thwart the investigation. The charge normally carries up to 5 years in prison, but under the terms of the plea deal, Mueller says he has recommended a lighter sentence of only up to 6 months in jail, court filings show. Flynn, the 4th person charged in the Mueller probe, admitted he lied to FBI investigators about his private discussions with Kislyak about U.S. sanctions imposed on Moscow by the administration of then-President Barack Obama. At the time, Flynn was a campaign and transition advisor with no official U.S. government role, but he was clearly a top candidate to become Trump's White House National Security Advisor. Flynn was eventually given that post, but was forced to resign in February, just weeks after the president took office, due to public concerns over his contacts with Russia. Flynn asked Kislyak on December 28 to moderate Russia's response to new sanctions and the expulsion of 35 Russian diplomats, announced by Obama in retaliation for Moscow's interference in the 2016 election. The documents say he took that action based on discussion with a senior official of the presidential transition team. After its announcement of punitive measures, the Obama administration was openly puzzled by Moscow's decision not to retaliate and began investigating possible interference by Flynn and the Trump campaign. According to court filings, a week earlier, under the instruction of a very senior member of the transition team, Flynn also secretly asked Kislyak to defeat or delay looming UN Security Council's resolution to condemn Israel's settlements in Palestinian territory. While the two interactions do not clearly suggest collusion, they raise question about Trump team's dealings with Moscow before taking office, and whether they actively worked to undermine Obama's policies. The White House, which has long denied any wrongdoing in relation to Moscow, said Flynn's admitted lies about those meetings mirror the false statements to White House officials which resulted in his resignation. Since the first allegations of Russian interference last year, and despite reports from top U.S. intelligence officials concluding it happened, Trump has dismissed the notion as fake news and an excuse for Democratic rival Hillary Clinton's loss at the polls. For Trump, the focus is on whether he has tried to stifle the investigation, including his firing of FBI Chief James Comey in May, which could draw obstruction of justice charges, the same charges that forced President Richard Nixon from office in 1974. Reporting for Eagle News, I'm Isabel Fernandez, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Isabel. Coming up, European consortium offers Canada a deal on warships. Arctic major fishing nations agree to no fishing in the Arctic for now. Canada's November job growth smashes expectations. In alpine skiing, Hutter wins at Lake Louise as Vaughan crashes out. Eagle News Canada will be back shortly. Welcome back. This is Eagle News Canada. A European consortium offers Canada a deal on warships. May Simbiling with the details.
A consortium of French and Italian shipbuilders, backed by their respective governments, on Friday offered to build 15 warships for Canada, reportedly at half the price it has budgeted to renew its naval fleet. Naval Group and Finchia-Thierry proposed building the new ships based on their Fram frigate design, which is already in use by both the French and Italian navies. The two companies said in a joint statement that the future frigates would be built in Canada at Irving Shipbuilding in Halifax in a very short time if the offer is accepted. The consortium also pledged to add Canadian suppliers to their global supply chains, as both Australia and the United States evaluate the ship design to outfit their respective navies with modern frigates. According to the Daily National Post, the consortium has guaranteed the cost of building the ships for Canada at no more than $30 billion Canadian. After repeated delays and rising costs, Canada settled on a budget of $60 billion Canadian for the ships, while construction is scheduled to begin in the early 2020s. The National Post said Canadian officials favor Lockheed Martin and the British firm BAE's proposal to build Type 26 frigates that BAE is making for the Royal Navy, but it added that the government would be hard-pressed to ignore the huge savings offered by the naval group Finchia-Thierry bid. Reporting for Eagle News, I am May Simbiling and I am 1 with 25.
Thank you, May. The Arctic major fishing nations agree to no fishing in the Arctic for now. Ansel Morano with more.
Arctic and major fishing nations, including China, announced that they have agreed to a moratorium on commercial fishing in Arctic waters before a fishery in the icy region is even feasible. The far north is warming at nearly twice the global average rate, causing changes in the size and distribution of fish stocks that may become more attractive to fishers in the medium to long term. Canadian Fisheries Minister Dominic LeBlanc said Canada, together with the European Union, China, Denmark for Greenland and the Faroe Islands, Iceland, Japan, South Korea, Norway, Russia, and the United States, agreed that no commercial fishing will take place in the high seas portion of the central Arctic Ocean while we gain a better understanding of the area's ecosystems. They also agreed that before any fishing takes place, they must establish appropriate conservation and management measures. To that end, the parties committed to conducting joint scientific research and monitoring to try to better understand Arctic Ocean ecosystems and whether the region can support commercial fisheries in the future. Carmenu Vella, EU Commissioner for the Environment, Fisheries and Maritime Affairs, called the legally binding agreement historic. The agreement in principle must still be ratified by all 10 parties. Greenpeace, praising the deal, said the moratorium is expected to endure for at least the next 16 years, covering an area of 2.8 million square kilometers or 1 million square miles. Reporting for Eagle News, I am Ansel Morano, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Anne. The 80,000 new jobs created in Canada in November beat all expectations, while pushing down the unemployment rate to a 10-year low of 5.9%. Ira David reports.
Statistics Canada reported that employment rose for a second consecutive month in November, while the unemployment rate fell by 0.4% to its lowest level since February 2008. Analysts had forecast a modest 10,000 new jobs created. According to Statistics Canada, employment increased for women 55 and older, for youth aged 15 to 24, and for men in their prime earning years aged 25 to 54. These people found jobs in wholesale and retail trade, manufacturing, educational services, and construction, while the number of agriculture jobs fell. The unemployment increase was largely among private sector employees, as both public sector employment and the number of self-employed were little changed. These gains were posted in the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, Quebec, and Prince Edward Island, while fewer people were employed in New Brunswick in the month. Other regions saw no changes. Reporting for Eagle News, I am Ira David, 1 with 25.
In alpine skiing, Hutter wins at Lake Louise as Vaughn crashes out. However, she eventually got to her feet unsteadily and was able to return to the finish area on her skis. Vaughn, who has 77 World Cup victories, said she planned to be racing in Saturday's downhill with a Super G scheduled for Sunday. For Hutter, it was a second career World Cup victory and her first since she missed a year with a knee injury. America's Schifrin consolidated her first place in the overall standings, which she leads with 365 points from Germany's Victoria Ravensburg, 236 points. Known for her prowess in the technical events, Schifrin notched her first podium with a speed discipline. Coming up, Eagle News takes you to a Yelp-organized event, Wild After Dark. Eagle News Canada will be back shortly. Welcome back. This is Eagle News Canada. Arnie Aquino takes us to Canada's largest and fully indoor reptile zoo, Wild After Dark. Arnie?
Tonight here at Reptilia, Wild After Dark, a local charity event is taking place.
Yelp, a website that helps people find, read, and write reviews on local restaurants and businesses, hosts Wild After Dark at Reptilia, Canada's largest fully indoor reptile zoo displaying over 250 reptiles, amphibians, and arachnids.
This is Biscuit. He's a box turtle. He was rescued. He was attacked by a dog. He's got some, sorry bud. He's got some chunks missing from his shell here and some little scarring, but he's good now.
Wild After Dark raises funds for a local library. In support of this cause, local restaurants and businesses offer up samples of their services amongst crocodiles, snakes, and lizards. Visitors can choose from a wide range of food items from pokeballs to pulled pork sliders to white truffle oil mac and cheese to apple crumble with bubble waffle. The event also welcomes visitors to sing their favorite songs on the karaoke. A reptile show even allows guests to touch snakes and crocodiles.
That was certainly an interesting experience filled with reptiles and food. Reporting from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, my name is Arnie Aquino. I am on the
Thank you, Arnie. What an interesting experience. Now here's Anthony Sevilla for the Grey Cup update.
A game 105 years in the making, dating all the way back to 1909, has become the biggest annual event on the Canadian sports calendar. This game has been played on mud, fog, and in this Grey Cup, on snow and ice. From TD Place in Ottawa, Ontario was host to the 105th Grey Cup, where the Calgary Stampeders and the Toronto Argonauts were set for their fourth ever meeting against each other in this final, with Calgary taking it in 1971, Toronto taking it in 1991, and again in 2012 for the 100th Grey Cup. Fast forward 5 years, the Toronto Argonauts chase a 17th title and a new identity, while the Calgary Stampeders, now a perennial powerhouse in this league, came into the game seeking redemption. The Calgary Stampeders opened up the scoring with 3:34 left in the first quarter, as quarterback Bo Levi-Mitchell faked the handoff and connected with wide receiver Kamar Jordan for a 33-yard touchdown. In the second quarter, the Argonauts made their mark on the box score in tremendous fashion, as the Argos quarterback Ricky Ray connected with wide receiver Devere Posey for a 100-yard touchdown, which was the longest pass play in Grey Cup history. Calgary would respond, obtaining continuous first downs and eventually reaching the end zone by running back Jerome Messam. Stampeders would complete the extra conversion and would lead the Argos 14-6. Later, Calgary would mishandle a long snap, and the Argos getting 2 points on the safety. Calgary would then complete a 39-yard field goal attempt from kicker Rene Paredes to end the half 17-8 in favor of the Stampeders. In the third, Argos quarterback Ricky Ray would connect with running back Declan Cross for the 26-yard pickup, and again for the touchdown. They would then opt and complete the 2-point conversion, cutting the Stamps' lead to just 1. Toronto would get flagged with defensive interference, giving Calgary first and goal from the 6-yard line, and the chance to score once again. Jerome Messam would make the catch for a second touchdown of the game, and end the third 24-16 for the Argos. It looked as if Calgary would run away with this game, but a game-changing fumble will lead to a 100-yard recovery from defensive back Cassius Vaughn and a touchdown. Toronto would then complete the 2-point conversion and tie the game up 24-24, with only 2 minutes left in regulation. The Argos were not finished, as Ricky Ray gets his team within field goal range, eventually to 32-yard field goal, putting them up by 3 with 49 seconds left. Calgary wouldn't give up, as quarterback Bo Levi-Mitchell connected with Kamar Jordan for a huge catch into Argos zone. Last chance for Calgary with 13 seconds left, as Bo Levi-Mitchell's pass was intercepted in the end zone, completing the fourth quarter comeback as the Toronto Argonauts win the 105th Grey Cup, defeating Calgary 27-24. The Toronto Argonauts turn around their franchise within only a year, as they were the worst team in the CFL last season, finishing 5-13. This season, however, they clinched the top seed in the East Division and ending it with a Grey Cup victory. The Calgary Stampeders were heavy favorites coming to the game. However, they were unable to get the job done. Establishing themselves as a CFL powerhouse, they enter the off-season with the Grey Cup loss. The Stamps have a chip on their shoulders, hoping to use this game as motivation heading into next season. For EBC Sports International, I'm Anthony Sevilla, and I'm 1 with 25.
Thank you, Anthony. This is Eagle News Canada. Join us next week for a news that matters to you. Visit our website at Eaglenews.PH. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. I am Lou Aquino. I'm 1 with 25.